let's begin with the 9-member committee that probed the Sputnik vaccine contracts, which has recommended that the finance minister take steps to recover $16 million paid for the vaccines. The report is due to be laid in the House for approval later today. The committee found that the amount of $2,850 which is representation of 50% of the contract sum of $5,700 which has been paid to Messias Al Maktoum, and this translates into the CD equivalent of 16,331,640 converted at the then prevailing exchange rate of $1 to 5 CD 53 pesos, whereas the minister says he had no knowledge of payment under oath. Let's go to Parliament because my colleague Joseph Opoku-Gakpo is there for us. He's been monitoring event. What does the committee's report say about how much money has been paid?
And so, Aisha, there's a bit of focus on that in the report, which we are waiting will soon be laid in Parliament to allow for the necessary debate and possible approval. Just to run you through some of those specific details, the report makes the point that when it comes to the payment, you recall that when the Health Minister, Kwekwajiman Menu, was before the 9-member committee, he was emphatic that despite the signing of the contract, which was worth something in the region of $64 million, no payment has been made to Sheikh Maktoum, although he had supplied up to 20,000 doses of the Sputnik vaccines. The committee found, however, that an amount of $2.85 million, which represents about 50% of the initial contract sum, had actually been paid. And when you do the conversion of that amount, it's about 16.3 million Ghana cedis. And the committee was emphatic that this said amount had actually been paid and went ahead to make a recommendation that going forward, concrete steps should be taken by the Minister for Finance. And just to quote that portion of the report, Aisha, it says, the committee urges the Minister for Finance to take steps to recover the money due the Republic in respect of the $2.85 million, which is equivalent to 16.3 million cedis, being the cost of the Sputnik V vaccines that were procured going forward. And the committee is by consensus recommending that these recommendations that they're making be approved by the House in order to allow for the Finance Minister to actually recover this. And the committee makes the point that regardless of the fact that 20,000 doses of the vaccines were actually supplied, still the total amount that were actually paid for is what should be recovered by the Minister for Finance.
Gakpo, what does the report say about breach of constitutional requirements on parliamentary approval?
So the report makes the point that this was an international business transaction that should have come to Parliament for approval. So the major finding of the committee is that there was non-compliance when it comes to Article 1815 of the Constitution. And so the committee makes the point that they found that the procurement and supply of the Sputnik V vaccines were actually, various transactions undertaken between government and Sheikh Ahmed Damouk Al Maktoum in a way that it was an international agreement. The committee's report is emphatic that it was an international agreement. And so the committee therefore took the considered view that the agreement qualifies as an international business or economic transaction, and the legal implication is that the agreement required a prior parliamentary approval in order to then come into operation as far as requirements in Article 1815 of the Constitution is concerned. And so the view of the committee is that it actually aligns with an advice that was given by the Attorney General earlier. So then they see a situation of the breach of that specific constitutional requirement, which the committee says is very worrying.
Recommendation number 11.2 of that report suggests that there's been breaches of the Public Procurement Act. What does it say, Gakpo?
So to quote that portion of the finding of the committee's report, it says that the committee found that the Ministry of Health did not seek approval from the Board of the Public Procurement Authority under Section 40 and 41 of the Act 6653 before signing the contract in question, and that the ministry, however, applied for a ratification under Section 93 of the Act, which has still not been granted till date, several months after that request actually went. And the committee says it also found that the Public Procurement Authority has not concluded its investigations into this particular matter, which again the committee makes the point that it's another very worrying development as far as this whole contract is concerned.
Now, the committee in conclusion is urging the Ministry of Health to take steps to retrieve this money. Are there timelines to how long it should take the ministry to retrieve this money?
So that recommendation to the finance minister to retrieve that particular money comes actually with no specific timelines. The committee members, from the details that we gathered, make the point that they are just a fact-finding committee. Their job was to put together details on what exactly happened. It's the plenary itself that's supposed to take its decision on what the more detailed way forward should be. The committee again makes the conclusion that they are of the view that the ministry did not comply with various constitutional requirements. The minister, in the exigencies of the time, although COVID-19 was a big issue, should have necessarily come to Parliament for the necessary parliamentary approval, and those processes could have been expedited. And so, the committee makes the point that these monies should be retrieved, the constitutional breaches should be ratified, but no specific timelines are given. And the indication is that specific and more concrete recommendations would come on the floor when MPs eventually debate the report in question.
So the report will soon be laid. Has it been laid already?
Not yet, Aisha. It's been itemized on the order paper as one of the things that the House will actually deal with. The House is scheduled to go on a break later this evening, so today is the final day that the House is sitting ahead of that particular break. But it's expected that before close of day today, it will be laid by the chairman, Alexander Penyomakin, and then the necessary debate and approval will be done.
What else can you report from Parliament? What other business is being conducted? Of course, we know the House is rising today.
And so the House is actually going ahead with processes to approve a request that has come to Parliament for the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, their subsidiary Exploco, to actually go ahead and acquire 70% stake in AGM Petroleum's oil block and another 37% stake in Eka Energy's oil block. So the debate of the Finance Committee's report recommending the necessary approval by the House is ongoing. There is also the recommendation for the approval of the $1.65 billion loan that the GMPC needs to do that acquisition, which the committee has actually slashed to $1.36 billion. So the House is going ahead to undertake the processes to allow for the approval of that going forward. That's the major thing that the House is dealing with as well today. And a little later as well, the House will be approving the Ghana Cocoa Board $1.5 billion syndicated loan, which they acquire every year to allow for the purchase of cocoa. That's also supposed to be done later today before the House goes on its break, and then eventually return sometime in October to continue with the necessary parliamentary processes.
Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, he's our correspondent in Parliament, and he's been following events there. He will be bringing us up to date as to what happens before the House rises this evening. But of course, also on the polls this afternoon,